Tokyo is the most populous city on Earth. Over 37 million people call this place home. Morning trains are packed like sardines. Hundreds of people cross the intersections at every light change. The city is a living, breathing ocean of humanity. But there's a strange paradox here. Despite being surrounded by so many souls, Japan is often called one of the loneliest societies in the world. Recent surveys show that a huge number of young Japanese feel lonely. We even have a word that symbolizes this era, kodokushi. In English, it means lonely death, dying alone without anyone noticing. How does this happen? Japan is famous for being safe. It's clean, it's organized, it's efficient. So why do so many people here feel lonely? Today, I want to take a walk through this city and explore the reasons behind the loneliness of Japan's youth. Lately, if you spend any time on YouTube, you'll notice a bizarre trend. Videos with titles like, "I'm Japanese and I have no friends," "The Isolated Life of Japanese Youth," or "A Day in My Lonely Life" are popping up everywhere. To be honest, half of it is exaggeration. Let's face it, being dramatic gets you more clicks. But the other half? That's undeniably true. I was born and raised in Japan. Most people say Japan is convenient, safe, and an easy place to live. They aren't wrong. The trains are surgical in their punctuality, and the streets are spotless. But after living in this society for a long time, you notice something eerie. In this country, people are physically so close, yet emotionally worlds apart. To many foreigners, Japan looks like a utopia. It's clean, crime is low, and people are polite. The service is top tier, and the neon-lit beauty of Tokyo at night is overwhelming. Most travelers say, Japan is so safe, so orderly, and the people are so kind. But behind that perfect facade, a silent epidemic is spreading: youth loneliness. Tokyo's metropolitan area alone has over 37 million people. It's the largest city in the world. In this town, you'll bump into people constantly, but you'll rarely actually talk to anyone. Japan has one of the highest rates of young people feeling lonely among developed nations. Why does living in the most crowded city make us feel so alone? If you've ever boarded a Tokyo commuter train, you've probably noticed something strange. You're in a carriage with hundreds of people, yet it's dead silent. Everyone is staring at their smartphones. No one speaks. Eye contact almost feels like a forbidden art. Actually, Japanese trains have many unwritten rules. The biggest one? Be quiet. Recently, a video of an influencer dancing with a loudspeaker on a Japanese train went viral. In some countries, that might be seen as entertainment. In Japan, it was met with visceral discomfort. If you look at the faces of the passengers in that video, they aren't just angry, they look distressed. It's that subtle, indescribable Japanese expression of, "Please, just don't exist in my space right now." If someone's phone rings on a train abroad, they might just answer it. In Japan, almost no one does. If they absolutely have to, they whisper in a tiny voice, "I'm on the train, I'll call you back." And then they get off at the next station just to make the call. That's normal here. We avoid bothering others. We protect the harmony of the space. But at the same time, this culture widens the gap between us. In New York or London, this might seem bizarre. It's not that Japanese people are cold, it's actually the opposite. We are so terrified of being a nuisance to others that we avoid striking up conversations or speaking loudly. This makes public spaces very comfortable, but it also means that even in a crowd, your connections to others are paper thin. This is the beginning of urban loneliness. In Japan, we have a famous phrase, kuuki wo yomu. In English, it means reading the air. There's no perfect English equivalent, but it basically means sensing the vibe of a situation and acting accordingly without being told. For example, you rarely disagree strongly with your boss in a meeting. Even among friends, we rarely voice direct, blunt opinions. We prioritize harmony. While this makes society run incredibly smoothly, there's a dark side. It's extremely hard to speak your true feelings. In Japanese, this is called honne. It means your true feelings. Work is painful. I feel lonely at school. My life isn't going well. Even if you feel these things, you can't easily say them in Japan because you might trouble those around you. From childhood, we are taught something called Gaman. It means to endure without complaining. and don't be a bother. As a result, even when young people are drowning in loneliness, they feel they can't tell anyone. Not being a nuisance is taught as our highest moral value. But this value has a flip side, a lack of tolerance for receiving help. Asking for help feels like an invasive act, like stepping into someone else's territory and being a bother. So, when people are in trouble, they can't send out an SOS. There is also a deep fear of rejection. If you finally summon the courage to be honest, and you're met with indifference, the damage is profound. So the defense mechanism kicks in. It's better to be alone from the start than to get hurt. Loneliness isn't always something forced upon us. Sometimes it's something we choose to avoid the possibility of pain. Back in the 2000s, a term called KY became popular. KY stands for Kuki ga yomenai. It means someone who cannot read the air. If you disrupted the vibe or acted differently, you were labeled KY. It's less common now, but it perfectly describes a society where standing out is a risk. I actually had a taste of this in middle school. It wasn't breaking news level bullying, just a bit of teasing maybe. But one day, one of my indoor shoes was gone. My notebook was in the trash. Looking back, they were small things. But at the time, I couldn't tell a soul. Not my teachers, not my friends, not my parents. Why? Because I didn't want to be a bother. I was embarrassed, and strangely, the option of consulting someone didn't even cross my mind. This psychology is not rare in Japan. Many young people simply swallow their problems in silence. Loneliness in Japan is a bit different from simply being alone. It's a loneliness you feel specifically when you're surrounded by people. There are thousands of students at a university, hundreds of colleagues at an office, and plenty of friends on social media. Yet, it's not uncommon to feel like there isn't a single soul you can talk to from the heart. In Japan, maintaining harmony in relationships is paramount. To avoid conflict, most people stick to surface-level interactions, relationships that look friendly on the outside, but never dive deep. Psychology calls this social loneliness. You are surrounded by people, yet you feel zero emotional connection. Among Japanese college students, a term once went viral that perfectly captures this: yo tomo. It's a mix of yo and tomodachi. That simply means friend. A yo tomo is someone you're close enough with to say yo to on campus, but that's where it ends. You aren't friends. You don't grab lunch together. You don't hang out on weekends. But ignoring them when you pass each other would be awkward. So you just say, yo. You follow each other on social media, but you almost never actually speak. This is the hallmark of modern Japanese relationships. The connections exist, but they are incredibly thin. Culture isn't the only culprit. The very structure of our society has shifted. In the old Japan, local communities were incredibly strong. Neighbors help each other, relatives live nearby, and the whole village raised the children. But during the era of rapid economic growth, people flocked from the countryside to the cities. Megalopolises like Tokyo and Osaka were born. As a result, those old community ties snapped. Today, it's completely normal not to even know the name of the person living in the apartment next door. Now, another major shift is happening. Young people are abandoning rural areas for the city. There are a few reasons for this. First, the human element. In the countryside, communities are too dense. Everyone knows where you work, who you're dating, and what your family is up to. Word travels at lightning speed. While that's a culture of mutual aid, many in the younger generation find it suffocating. They are drawn to the comfortable distance of the city. Second is convenience. The city has everything: transportation, shopping, entertainment. In the country, life without a car is nearly impossible. And third is work. High-paying jobs and companies that offer skill growth are still scarce in rural Japan. I actually worked in the countryside for a while. What I felt most strongly was a different flow of time. I'd use outdated materials and old-school sales tactics to pitch products to elderly local business owners. There was a warmth there, certainly. People were close. But as a 20-something, I couldn't stop wondering, is this where I should be learning and growing? So young people head for the city. But the city doesn't necessarily cure loneliness. Instead, a different, colder form of isolation is waiting there. In the past, the company functioned as a primary community in Japan. Lifetime employment was the norm. You worked at the same place for 40 years. Your colleagues were like family. You'd go drinking after work and spend your weekends together. Before the bubble burst in the 90s, the company was the second family. It sounds lovely, though it meant staying with that family until the last train every single night. Once you entered a company, you stayed until retirement. You were comrades eating from the same pot. There were drinking parties, company trips, and some firms even held sports days. People lived in company dorms together. Sure, some found it meddlesome, but it provided a fierce sense of security. I belong to this tribe. But today's workplace is unrecognizable. Changing jobs is no longer a taboo, and precarious, non-regular employment is on the rise. The office has become something like a temporary project team. The person in the next cubicle might be at a different company in 2 years. When that happens, people stop trying to build deep roots. Furthermore, society has stopped being a place to raise the youth. Japanese firms used to invest heavily in training young employees over the long haul. But now, your career and your skills are your own responsibility. There's no guarantee the company will look after you for life. Young people work under the crushing pressure of increasing their market value. Even colleagues become rivals competing for future positions. It becomes impossible to show weakness or speak honestly. A survey showed nearly half of employees in their 20s and 30s feel lonely at work. The company community, the most vital pillar for Japanese people, is quietly crumbling. And unlike in the West, where people have religious groups, hobby clubs, or local pubs to fall back on, Japanese people have relied solely on the company for so long that there's no Plan B community. We are entering the Muen Shakai, the society of severed ties. Adding to this is the explosion of single-person households. Currently, about 40% of Japanese households consist of just one person, a historic high. Marriage rates are down, birth rates are down, and more young people than ever are living in solitude. Living alone is freedom, but it lives right next door to loneliness. Interestingly, our values regarding living alone have shifted. In the 2000s, the term ohitori-sama started trending. It refers to doing things alone. At first, it sounded a bit pathetic, eating alone, traveling alone. But by the 2010s, it turned positive. It became solo katsu, actively choosing solo activities as a liberated, independent lifestyle. Then came the 2020s and the pandemic, which accelerated everything. Eating alone or going to a movie alone became the default. In 2023, 56% of people said they prefer being alone, a massive jump from 30 years ago. Of course, solo time isn't inherently bad. Coffee shop culture has exploded. Japanese people spend twice as much time alone in cafes compared to 30 years ago. But when you get too used to being alone, the bridge to connecting deeply with others becomes much harder to cross. Modern loneliness is amplified by social media. Instagram and TikTok show a 24/7 stream of happy lives, travel, success, romance. Even if we logically know these are just highlight reels, we can't help but compare. This is FOMO, the fear of missing out. The lonelier a person is, the more time they tend to spend on social media, which only deepens the void. I felt this myself after I hit 30. Opening Instagram started to hurt. My friends were getting married, having kids, buying houses and cars, a parade of perfect moments. I'm happy for them, truly, but a part of me whispers, am I the only one being left behind? Strangely, when an old friend would call or message, I'd feel a twinge of anxiety. I'd think, is this a wedding invitation? It's not a bad thing, but in that moment, I can't help but measure the pace of my life against theirs. SNS forces us to perform that painful measurement every single day. In recent years, loneliness in Japan has shifted from a personal feeling to a glaring social crisis. We used to think of kodokushi as a problem for the elderly, but lately, the isolation of people in their 10s, 20s, and 30s has become impossible to ignore. According to data from medical examiners in Tokyo, hundreds of young people are dying alone in their apartments every year, unnoticed by the world. Even more shocking is that in about 40% of these cases, it takes several days or more for the body to be discovered. The cause isn't always physical illness. Many are cases of suicide driven by total mental isolation. Because of the psychological urge to not trouble others, people suffer in silence, unable to reach out even when their mental or physical health is failing. This leads to the most tragic outcomes. Another dark manifestation of this is the rise of yamibaito. Yamibaito refers to illegal or criminal part-time jobs, such as robbery or fraud, that young people are recruited into through social media. The background of those arrested is often more than just financial struggle. It's social isolation. With no family to lean on and no friends to talk to, they seek a connection through social media, only to be lured into crime. Once they're in, they are blackmailed with their personal information and can't escape. Because they have no one to consult, they carry the burden alone until they've committed a serious crime. We also see this in the Toyoko kids of Shinjuku. They gather in specific urban spots, not necessarily because they want to commit crimes or do drugs, but because they are searching for one thing: a place to belong. Young people who feel invisible at home, school, or in society gather with others who share their pain. Tragically, this search for connection often leads them into dangerous environments in cases of overdosing on over-the-counter medications. However, the landscape is slowly shifting. New types of connections are emerging. Online communities, hobby groups, and small grassroots circles. The younger generation is starting to seek authentic relationships on their own terms. Communities that are neither school nor work. Recently, a new type of relationship has started to appear in Japan. It's called Yurui Tsunagari. It means loose connections between people. These relationships aren't heavy or demanding, but they aren't complete isolation either. It's a distance where you aren't alone, but you remain free. Instead of sharing your whole life with one person, you share only a piece of yourself for a specific purpose. For instance, on Discord or Line Open Chat, people gather solely for gaming, video editing, or studying for exams. You can connect with strangers whose names and faces you don't know, sharing struggles and progress. Because it's anonymous, the guilt of being a nuisance is gone. If it doesn't fit, you can leave anytime. On X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, the culture of private accounts and sub-accounts is huge. There, young people share the raw weaknesses and niche hobbies they can't tell their real-life friends. Even Study With Me streams on YouTube and TikTok are a form of connection. You just study while watching someone else do the same. You might only say "good job" in the chat, but that sense that someone else is out there working hard too eases the loneliness. It's what people call a moku moku session, where cameras and microphones are turned off and everyone simply shares the same space. Even in physical spaces, we see the rise of the familiar stranger. You might not have deep conversations with the staff or regulars at your favorite cafe, but you recognize each other's faces. Ah, that person is here again today. Sociologists say this is a vital element in preventing lonely deaths. We also see something called oshikatsu, which means supporting your favorite idol or character, and often creates a loose sense of solidarity among fans. Even housing is changing. Share houses that don't force social interaction are increasing. You don't need a rowdy party. Just a simple, "good job today" in the kitchen is enough. This comfortable distance is becoming the most vital safety net for Japan's youth. Interestingly, this isn't just a Japanese phenomenon. Loneliness is a massive social issue in the US and Europe as well. The UK even had a minister for loneliness. While the problem is global, if you break it down, you see a mix of universal digital age struggles and Japan-specific cultural walls. In Japan, loneliness is usually quiet. The fear of troubling others prevents the SOS. The culture of reading the air and the pressure to conform exhausts people until they choose to be alone. This loneliness doesn't usually explode outward. Instead, it manifests as a quiet retreat from society. That's symbolized by the hikikomori phenomenon. In contrast, loneliness in the West can take a louder form. Because being extroverted is seen as the mark of success, not having friends can lead to intense shame or a sense of inferiority. This can drive people toward extreme online communities or performative lives on social media. In cultures where you are expected to be independent by 18, the inability to do so can crush a young person's self-esteem. The forms are different, but the ache is the same. Loneliness in Japan is a result of a collision between culture, society, and technology. But it also serves as a reminder of what human beings truly need. It isn't success, and it isn't efficiency. It is true connection. If you ever find yourself on a Tokyo train, looking at the silent young people staring at their phones, please remember, behind that silence, there may be a profound longing to reach out and be seen. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like. And don't forget to subscribe for more documentaries exploring the hidden realities of modern society.